Hey everyone, Dankest Dad here, and today I'm gonna start a series kicking off some Girl Power decks for Universus. Girl Power is the newest My Hero Academia set, and kicking things off, we've got Mirko 2 on air. So she's one of the faces of this set, and she's the spiritual successor to Bakugo 1 from the first My Hero Academia set. But instead of clearing the card pool when your opponent blocks, Mirko clears it when your opponent gets hit. So this difference is pretty notable, and while it isn't strictly better or worse than Bakugo's, Mirko's potential to run away with a game is much, much higher. She won't get quite as consistent damage, but once she hits her opponent, it's really, really difficult for them to get back in the game. So the way this deck is built is to make sure that that first hit happens with lots of cards that are in here that can pump up speed and draw more cards to keep the attacks flowing. Secondary to that, of course, is trying to make sure that a little bit of damage gets in there. And of course, on defense, this deck tries really not to block all that much. You want to be using your resources to build and hit your opponent, but most of the blocks are mids to make sure you can have that little bit of damage mitigation when you need it. So, if you like going fast, beating up on your opponent before they get a chance to think about what's happening to them, would really recommend trying out Mirko, especially on a build like this. And yeah, now we can get into the cards. Alright, so starting things off, basic training is probably our best unit if we can play. We have a great block mod on it, can give a little bit of extra damage, some incidental deadlock. All in all, just fantastic card, and it's easy to build, which is perfect for a character that wants foundations to blow up. Warm and Bubbly is probably our next best zero diff we can run. The pool for air is a little bit thin on good zero diffs, but Warm and Bubbly can just say -2 damage sometimes, also a mid block, and yeah, overall no real complaints. Small and Limber is one of this deck's all-stars. Committing Small and Limber to give your attack +1/+1, or to pay for another cost that we'll see later, is pretty good. And since Mirko is going to be removing foundations from your stage with her enhance effect to re-ready, Small and Limber is going to have lots of chances to sort of come back and ready itself. At the 4 check, it's a little bit hard to justify a full set of 4, but this is one of the better cards in the deck, and 3 has tested to be about the right number. But Flustered, I may have just said that about 4 checks, but Flustered is well worth it. We're able to build this deck in such a way that the charge keyword comes in second to kick, and it's on almost every card in this deck, meaning that Flustered is almost always on. Being able to flip for a draw or for, a chance to mitigate your rival's momentum build, pretty nice. And this is almost always on. Basically, no cost. We really want to max on this. Fearsome Transformations also is quite good, provides additional card draw, especially once you get momentum going, and you can afford to use this even when you don't have momentum, just the selection is fine when you're looking for an attack. Secret Family Technique is another new card from Girl Power that does an awful lot in this deck. So you can commit it to give your attack +2 speed, and if it deals damage, which giving it speed you are usually sure it will, you get to draw a card. And with Mirko, you can then blow up this committed foundation to re-ready her and keep the string going. This card is also very nice. Like the Wind, in here only as a 2 of, but another way to pump up your speed. And you also have plenty of EX attacks in the deck, so Like the Wind can give you momentum, which definitely comes in handy on this character. Nice Try, as usual, is a generally good foundation. This is one of the few pieces of defense this deck can afford to run, and yeah, overall, probably one of the more cuttable cards in the deck. Still, though, just a solid foundation, so we're at 3. Incompatible Quirks is an absolute all-star, so if you don't want to be using Mirko to blow up your foundations to kick, you can also use Incompatible Quirks to re-ready itself by removing foundations. And if you're going up against an opponent that tries to turtle out, build to deadlock, if you have a hand with this card, you can afford to take a build turn yourself and really make sure that even with their full stage, even with all their resources, with any amount of breakers, any amount of Keikos, your opponent is not going to be able to stop you. So Quirks is great and also has some defensive utility as well. Quick like a rabbit. So this is the reverse encouragement. If you remember encouragement from set 1, this let Bakugo sort of force his kick in there. So when your opponent actually got hit by your attack, you could kick it anyways. And quick like a rabbit is the opposite. While it destroys rather than flip, it does let you kick your Fury or kick after it's blocked. And of course, every card in this deck is a kick. So no matter what happens, quick like a rabbit means that your first attack can come out of the card pool starting off a string. So this is really nice with Recipro Turbo, where you can pocket that momentum or draw a card and not worry about using the EX because you have quick like a rabbit ready just to get rid of that attack. Now, latent skill, of course, is another all-star for selection. And given so much efficient draw is on 1 cost for air, we don't need to max on this, but as usual, it's an excellent card with a good block zone. And if you're looking to maybe cut nice tries and try to get even more aggressive, I think latent skill is another card that could take that slot. Vast Hybrid is a bit of a flex here as a one-of. We are playing it for the good block zone, and because this is a card that can tuck itself into your momentum, which is very, very valuable. It also can give a check +1, and it can buff your attacks by 1 damage on your stage. Once again, kind of like incompatible quirks, Vast Hybrid is going to help you out in those games that go long, where your opponent decides that they're going to really turtle up, try not to, take that early chip, not let you get that string. You can use Vast Hybrid to build out, give your attacks +1 damage, then tuck it in your momentum and really start going off. Now, last and certainly not the least is Mirko's Foundation, Solo Pro's Ferocity. So this foundation is incredible. And while the flip commit cost on the bottom is sort of nice on that form, just when you're going up against 5-handers that might have defensive abilities or trouble building, we are really all in here on that first enhance. So committing a foundation to give your attack +2 speed is excellent. And when you can then destroy that committed foundation after your attack hits to re-ready Mirko, oh boy, then you're really getting into it. So with all of these flip foundations like Flustered, Fearsome Transformation, and Latent Skill earlier on the curve, and Warm and Bubbly, you can commit your flip foundation, get your 2 speed, blow it up, bring this right back, and get your full value. It also has a fantastic block zone, and this will really make sure that those first attacks hit crucially. So, moving on to our attacks, first up we have Frog Stomp. So Frog Stomp is a charge and a kick, and a 3-diff, which is pretty nice for those long strings. So with this card, you're going to want to stack your damage on this with cards like Small and Limber, Basic Training, to really get through that last line of defense. You're going to be able to get both enhances on this often, so this really is a 3-diff 4-low for 4 with a good block zone that you can put a little more meat on. Not the most important attack to have in the deck, but it certainly is solid. Rebound Sidekick is a bit of a spicy inclusion, but if you take a close look at this card, you'll realize that it's really, really strong in Mirko. So this attack has a response where after it's blocked, you can move it to your momentum after it resolves. And if it's blocked, then it's gone from your card pool. And if it deals damage, Mirko can respond and kick it. So your opponent's put in this awful situation where they have to either take the hit, let your next attack get the buff from Mirko, and then just continue the string while they're taking damage. So combos nicely with basic as well because of the flash, can chip them for 5 and then get your string started. Or if your opponent actually blocks it, you have momentum to work with, which means you can use one of your threatening EX abilities or powerful ones later down the line. So Sidekick, excellent card. Really, really threatening for Mirko. So, One for All, full cowling, 8%, falling roundhouse is tied for the longest card name in the game. And, well, Mirko can use it really well. Getting 1 speed and 1 damage for each attack cleared from your card pool this turn is very, very nice. Means that you can use this card to just get big later in the string, even on 0 progressive, can come in easily as a 5-6, and will most often be a 4-5, maybe even a 6-7. It's just very good. You also can ready 1 foundation that was committed during this enhanced step and has not been ready this combat phase, which combos very nicely with Solo Pro's Ferocity, Like the Wind, and Secret Family Technique. So, all in all, very, very excellent attack, and one of the reasons why I think Girl Power has pushed this style of Mirko deck so hard. Shoot Style of the Knee Smash is another one. It gives you card draw if it hits, and it's a low with EX, so it will hit often. And you know what? Sometimes you will discard a card, and in a character with 30 health that just needs to live on 1 so that she can kill you, if you've played a Latent Skill or Fearsome Transformations, anything of that nature, you can get this discard, and sometimes your opponent will use a Botan's coaching, let you get it for yourself. It's just really, really flexible, and gaining that 3 health can be situationally useful, even though it's not at all the primary reason this card's in the deck. So, if your opponent decides to block you, or you decide you don't want to clear, Shoot Style St. Louis Smash is a really great way to punish them. So this is the deck's powerful card, so the big damage engine. And if you're spending your momentum from your other cards early, you can snag a free one with St. Louis with the first enhance. And if your rival isn't blocking your attacks for some reason to, see if you're going to do something else or hold their big block, you can discard from your card pool to build out that powerful. And wouldn't you know it, most of these other attacks in the deck are charges, with the exception of Rebound Sidekick, which is not going to stay in your card pool, so you won't have to worry about it for St. Louis. And wait, there's one more that's not. Recipro Turbo. And this card is the build-around and is the primary reason to play this deck. Recipro's first enhance is your other kick attacks get +2 speed for this turn. Your non-attack cards get +1 difficulty this turn. So +1 difficulty on your non-attacks is really not a big deal if you are not planning on playing non-attacks that turn. So if you're going to KO your opponent, by all means, you can Recipro Turbo as freely as you like. You also are going to have some situations where you can Recipro Turbo anyways, and since your card pool will be so clear, Recipro Turbo is going to let you hit your opponent hard, keep clearing your pool with Mirko, and then suddenly building these low difficulty foundations on a little bit of progressive that you might have had sort of is not so bad a cost. And Recipro 2 speed on everything else is so worth it. One of the nice things that you can do if your opponent does manage to stall you up is you can Recipro twice. So you can play Recipro, hit with it, then play the next one, and the second Recipro will have the +2 from the first, and then after that, all of your kicks have +4 speed. Very, very difficult to handle. Recipro also has this enhance if this is the only card in your card pool. Draw 1 card or add 1 card from your hand to your momentum. So, card draw is always great, but if you're short momentum, you can tuck a momentum, play the EX ability, and suddenly this is an 8 mid without really much investment from you at all. So if you're starting a string with it, Recipro is great, and if your first attack hits, you can follow up with a Recipro and keep stringing out by using either that draw or momentum to make sure that they keep landing. So all in all, this package of attacks does not relent, and Recipro is going to make sure that after the first one lands, all of those other attacks with +1/+1 from Mirko, +2 speed from this, are just going to really punish your opponent and do the job. For assets, we have the Gran Torino Agency. So the agency provides, as everybody knows, and this is one of the few decks in the game that actually can use every part of this card effectively. So when this card is ready in your stage, attacks get +1 speed. awesome, fantastic. Free +1 on speed is everything. And then you have this response commit. After an attack leaves your card pool during the combat phase, draw one card. And wouldn't you know it, Mirko's response means that you're going to be having a lot of attacks leave your card pool. So one thing that's cute is that you don't have to use this response when an attack leaves. So if you're planning on continuing, you can keep playing attacks, keep that passive 1 speed, and then you can commit this when that last one goes, take that speed away from your opponent, and get your card draw. The last enhance, destroy. You may use any kick attack in your hand to block this attack as if it had its +0 mid block modifier. So we'd love to see that. As we said, mid is pretty good for Mirko because it means she can just mitigate some damage. And wouldn't you know it, every single attack is a kick. So Gran Torino Agency is essentially going to act as a speed debuff for our opponent as well if we choose not to commit it. So yeah, Agency's a great one of. Air Force gloves are in here at 2x. Good block zone for us if we need some high. We have a 6 check, which is always convenient. And it gives our charge or punch attacks, well, charges in our case, that do not have stun 1, which is all of them. And stun is pretty nice for Mirko if she's trying to land her attacks that aren't blocked. There also is some nice deadlock on this, so once again, a little bit of redundancy in case our opponent wants to try and build out to block our attacks. Kaminari's sharpshooting gear is pretty nice for zone changing and getting momentum. We really like to see that in Mirko. For Recipro Turbo, being able to get that EX is very nice, or powerful for a St. Louis smash to end the game can be pretty useful. Plus, once again, more deadlock to give an attack that last bit of oomph to get in and knock an opponent out of the game. Talking about the sideboard, we have the Grenadier Bracers. So these are some more damage. So if you are going up in a matchup where you think that having more damage on your attacks is going to make the difference, you can take out sharpshooting gear Air Force gloves, get rid of some of that deadlock, and slap those bracers in there. And you can hit for so much damage on your final attack of the turn with this if you are destroying foundations with Mirko. So bracers, very nice. Genkai's Guidance can be in there for opponents that are holding blocks or that need to invest heavily in a single attack. Think maybe an opponent like Amajiki, for example, if they're going to go big on an Armor of the Wolf or pump up an attack with Black Abyss. Genkai's Guidance can slot in, and also has a first form that can be used aggressively. With all of the card draw in this deck, the discard cost really isn't all that big. You also can use it to turn on shoot style knee smash if you're so inclined. And yeah, just very, very reasonable. Childlike Appearance is another defensive trick. So if you want to try and leverage Mirko's 30 health in a matchup, or you have an opponent that is playing sort of that scam offense like Amajiki, where they're building out that one massive attack, Childlike Appearance can act as a deterrent and even let you block it in that case. Cape of No Return is once again there for that same purpose. You'll notice this is a common theme, and while Mirko can use her mid blocks and her high health total to sort of deal with the chip that other sort of aggressive and mid-range decks are going to throw at you, there really is not much defense for her from those big, big scary attacks. And Cape of No Return can act to kind of shut that down. Cape also is very nice on offense as well, which is a bit counterintuitive, but if your opponent decides that they're going to make an attack like Recipro Turbo blockable, if you are in the situation where it could be good for you, you can bait out something like a Barrier Shield, new number 1, or other sort of debuff, and use Cape of No Return to clear it from your card pool and be able to keep playing on the progressive and keep playing with that +2 speed. So Cape is definitely going to be good in matchups against Evil Order perhaps, and is an option to consider there. Last up we have Luna Ring. This is just the asset tech that is probably the best fit in this deck. It also does a bit of damage, but generally isn't good in the main board unless you are sure that you're going to be running into a character like Mimic or possibly Mei Hatsume 1 or 2. you probably don't want to really bring this Luna Ring in, but in those cases when you do, it can fit in nicely for maybe one of your St. Louis's or Recipros, or even something like Frog Stomp, because in those matchups you might not need that 3. You might have a pretty easy time if you're taking assets out of the equation. So, with that, that's the deck. I hope that you guys like this, and please give me some feedback if there's anything else you want to see or any other characters you think are cool. Thanks for watching, and looking forward to coming at you with the next one. Thanks.